The story begins here in New York, 1930. The city was in the grip of economic crisis. Just a few months earlier, the boozy bubble of the Roaring Twenties had burst with a vengeance. Some couldn't believe their eyes. The dreams of a generation lay trampled beneath their feet. Some were angry, some were resigned. But one thing was certain, there was no escaping the consequences of an economy in ruins. Within a year, across America, some 4 million men were out of work. They lived on handouts and welfare. They struggled to make ends meet. No more wages meant no more gambling, no more floozies, and no more liquor. The party spirit of the 1920s gave way to a mood of grim austerity. At street level, the mafia gangs of New York City still held sway. Known as the families, these gangs controlled their home districts and the crime that went on there. But the Wall Street crash put the squeeze on mafia activities, and it triggered a conflict which had been brewing for a decade. The fight was to be brutal and bloody. It was a battle between the old and the new, and it was to shape the whole future of the mob. History calls the conflict the Castellammarese Wars. This is the leading contender in the Castellammarese conflict. Joe the Boss Masseria was a traditionalist. He believed that the families should stick to doing their own thing. An outfit runs on its own, he said, and knocks off anybody in its way. But this man disagreed. Salvatore Charlie Lucky Luciano saw the advantage of gangs working in combination. The mafia should do business outside the family, even with gangsters from other ethnic groups, like the Irish or the Jews. Luciano was not slow to practice what he preached. His lifelong consigliere, or advisor, was a Jewish childhood friend, Mayor Lansky. The Castellammarese Wars began as just another mafia blood feud. And fueling the feud, the mafia code: respect, silence, and vengeance. The heads of rival families were vying for the title Capo di tutti capi, a rank of respect acknowledging the top mobster of the day. But the feud got out of hand. Within a year, over 100 would die. Luciano at first took the side of Joe the Boss Masseria, but the bloodshed convinced him that the mob and the way it worked would have to change. Luciano was sickened by the piecemeal killing. He resolved to end it with one last death, that of his one-time ally, Joe the Boss Masseria. It was to a restaurant in Coney Island that Luciano personally lured Joe the Boss Masseria in April 1931. The pretext? To discuss, over lunch and a friendly game of cards, the killing of Masseria's last Castellammarese rival. But as it turned out, Masseria himself was the target. Filmmakers later loved such events for their almost biblical flavor. For here, Luciano played Judas. He was the finger man. Six bullets later, Masseria was dead, and Luciano was chief mafioso in New York. Tucked into Masseria's lifeless and bloody hand, the ace of spades. It was a gruesome joke, typical of the lead trigger man, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. The hit guaranteed Siegel a place at the mob's top table and a reputation for a love of violence. Siegel was another boyhood friend of Luciano. Together with Mayor Lansky, these three men came to dominate gangland during the 1930s.